Hello, my name is Anna Morrison and I'm the founder and director of Amazing Apprenticeships, and I am delighted to be chairing this event where we're going to be sharing the exclusive results of the OU and the 5% Club's National Apprenticeship Week survey. A lot of the survey shows the rising demand and support for apprenticeships as we look to the post-pandemic recovery, and that employers large and small are reporting that they are an important tool to help their organisation to build their future. But also, interestingly, the survey shows how employers are now looking to apprenticeships as a key way to diversify their workforce. So hopefully we can get to that crucial mix of boosting apprenticeships for the people who we know will benefit the most, and help with the post-pandemic recovery of organisations growing their own talent and filling skills gaps, a win-win for all. I'm therefore pleased to introduce our panel today. We have Viren Patel of the OU. The OU provides a range of higher and degree apprenticeship programmes across England in a variety of sectors and publishes lots of interesting insights on skills and apprenticeships in the UK, including its great new Build the Future apprenticeship survey. We also have Karima Kanka from Thames Water and Issa Mutlib from the BAME Apprenticeship Alliance joining us today. Thank you also to the 5% Club who undertake the survey in partnership with the OU. I can't wait to plunge into the survey results today, as well as discuss and share expertise on how we can use apprenticeships to build a more diverse workforce. Viren, let me start by asking, what's the strategic role of apprenticeships for you, and how do you think organisations are using them to support their recruitment and retention strategies?
Thanks, Anna. I think apprenticeships are actually hugely important from a strategic point of view. I think the survey that we've conducted with YouGov this year as part of the National Apprenticeship Week has really showed us that 88% of employers really plan to maintain or increase their number of apprentices in the next 12 months. And this is a really good sign that they're using apprenticeships and seeing the value of apprenticeships and really committing to those programs that they're putting into place. And organisations are really facing quite an acute recruitment challenge now, aren't they? And, we're in the era of the Great Resignation, so apprenticeships can be a valuable tool in tackling this big strategic kind of problem. And just to add a bit of context, I think apprenticeships are available to all employees of all ages and all levels, which means that employers can use them to upskill and reskill their entire workforce. And, just to note, the age of our apprentices range between 18 to 63 with an average age of 36. So we're seeing employees use the apprenticeships as a real tool to filling their critical skills gaps in, say, in healthcare, as in nursing or in social work, or even in with digital professionals.
Thank you, Viren. And how important do you think they are for the post-pandemic recovery? What are you seeing coming through when you're talking to employers?
Yeah, I think, the pandemic has really changed the way organisations operate and do business, right? I mean, the skills are different now, and, IT and digital skills are becoming more prominent and actually more critical to long-term development of strategy. So apprenticeships play a really big part in that. I mean, about 60% of our respondents said that apprenticeships allowed them to proactively build on its future, as you said earlier on, Anna, and it's really encouraging to see that. And we've seen that in the public sector as a result of the pandemic and, that demand for frontline workers. And we're seeing that, apprenticeships are a real, I suppose, successful route for widening access and providing a flexible route into these sectors. And the survey shows real positive sentiment across all sectors and all business sizes, including sort of SMEs.
Brilliant. Thank you, Viren. You're spot on. I think so brilliant that we've seen that interest in employers and how they can use apprenticeships, not only in the kind of traditional way, but right across their workforce at all of those different levels, like you say. So it's very timely then to bring in Karima from Thames Water to talk to us about how they use apprenticeships in the workforce. So Karima, can you tell us a little bit more about your approach that you're taking?
Yes, thank you, Anna. So I'm about 1 year into role, and historically the business was sort of underutilized apprenticeships, I guess. And we had sort of 20 of a small external cohort come in every year on about 2 to 3 disciplines. And I remember one of the conversations I had when I first started was we must spend our levy. And actually we flipped it around to say it's not about spending the levy, although we are considerably underspent. This is about really understanding what our business needs are and what our demands are, and use apprenticeships to deliver some solutions for that. So we started off with strategic workforce planning, which was a great piece of work that really helped us understand our needs within our business. So it delved into where our gaps were, where our vacancy challenges were, and also gave us a real outlay of some of those challenges for the next 10 to 15 years. Using that data, we were then able to create a very targeted approach by business area, looking at how we introduce apprenticeships that are going to deliver some of those solutions for us. So we've gone from 2 to 3 disciplines per annum to 23 qualifications across the board, which are open to both internal and external colleagues. And we've doubled the utilisation of our levy in that sort of 8 to 9 month period. And we've really used our strategic workforce planning with this approach to ensure that the apprenticeships we are utilising are there to build a pipeline of skills into our business, but as Viren said, also supports existing colleagues. So where we've built the pipeline in is where we really struggle to recruit in quite niche or unique areas, so engineering being one, quantity surveying, project management, but also ensuring by offering this range of opportunity, we're really going to start to appeal to this wider candidate group. And I think it's really important that employers aren't offering apprenticeships just at level 2 or level 3, but really up to degree level and really breadth if they have the opportunity to do that. And for existing colleagues, we're using apprenticeships to ensure that colleagues that have completed their apprenticeship are able to move on to a second apprenticeship and offer that breadth within their experience, and also existing colleagues to develop their careers. So we are creating this culture of careers, not just jobs. And the reason we do that is we don't want to be promoting underemployment. We want to invest in our colleagues and we want to bring that talent in externally as well. So apprenticeships for us have been a great way to bring talent in, to build engagement with our colleagues, but really the starting point has been not let's spend the levy and deliver lots of apprenticeships, let's understand what our business needs are and really tailor apprenticeships to fill that gap niche and sort of understand our demands for the future.
Thank you, Karima. I think such a sensible approach and logical when we hear it explained like that. And I think in the early days we did see a lot of activity that was really focused on levy spend. So it's brilliant that you're really thinking about wider workforce strategy, and I love that focus on progression as well. So often apprenticeships are seen as a kind of a one level thing, and actually to have that strategy that encourages employees to consider their career development is just fantastic. Thank you. So Isa, I'd love to bring you in. And from all of your work that you're involved in across apprenticeships, and you work with many employers and individuals.
Thank you very much, Anna, and hello to everybody. So yeah, it's important to kind of bring a bit of a historical context to this, and I don't mean sort of too far back. I mean like the past decade or so. If we've seen skills and training be a key part of and a critical part of recovery. So if you look at the financial crash. And that gave rise to various government-backed initiatives to boost skills and career mobility. But the nature of skills needed then remained the same for that period. And if you look at the rapidly changing technological shifts, the nature of skills needed in a short space of time now to fill the present and future gaps meant that the way we recruit and fill these gaps in these organisations must change. In comes apprenticeships. To be able to do in-work training for the future of work for anybody from any background, any employer, you've got to be over the age of 16 to fill these gaps with new forms of learning, reskilling and upskilling meant that employers have now got access to a plethora of opportunities to develop their workforce. So whether it's existing workforce acquiring new skills or new talent bringing in fresh ideas and competencies, organisations can really drive human, corporate and economic performance. And since employers can no longer be dependent on or no longer need to be dependent on degree requirements, apprenticeships fundamentally brings opportunities for individuals to train and fill skill gaps and raise their salaries and retain them on a career journey for them.
Thanks, Isa. So any background, any employer, I love that. Viren, can I just ask for you to input a little on the OU's approach as an employer? Do you have apprentices in your workforce?
We do, and we've sort of increased our offer internally over the last few years, and I have had recently in my area I've had an influx of young apprentices, and what we found actually they bring a kind of a real energy to the team. They bring a new perspective, a fresh perspective to the workplace, which actually not only helps them but actually helps my existing team in developing their approach to education, but also developing their approach to dealing with situations out in the real world. So it's really important. And I think we have a number of sort of experienced staff taking on apprenticeships as well, very similar to Karima at Thames Water, who want to build their skills, want to build a career journey for themselves in areas like systems thinking or leadership and management. So I think it's really important. I think the other thing I'd just like to add here is that with the OU's open access policy, we're actually giving our staff the ability to have to build, have qualifications or generate new skills that they may not have had the opportunity to take on as a result of their sort of prior educational attainment. So it's a real interesting journey for us at the AU, and we're seeing the benefit of that going forward.
Fantastic. Thanks, Viren. And I would echo that. So as a small business, nowhere near the number of employees that you have at the OU or at Thames Water. But as a small business, we've been able to use apprenticeships to build our talent pipeline, to bring in new employees, but crucially to upskill existing employees. And actually employees who decide they might want a career direction, to be able to take them in a totally different route and kind of open that up to them as well, which is lovely to see. So if we move on to talk about diversity and inclusion, because that's a big piece of this survey and, really interesting to see the insights that are coming through. So Viren, do you think employers value apprenticeships to be able to help to diversify their workforce?
That's a really good question. I think, the sentiment is there in the employers that we speak to in the survey and on a day-to-day basis. I think there is sentiment that they value apprenticeships to support individuals from low socioeconomic backgrounds, to support individuals that don't have a low sort of educational attainment or have declared disabilities or from a sort of a BME background, or ex-offenders and sort of social care leavers. But I think and over 60% of them value that, and the sentiment's there. But I think the challenge now is that only 30% are putting that into practice. And I'd really be interested to hear what Karima and Isa have to their thoughts on this, because I think there's a gap. The sentiment's there, but actually there's no concrete plans in place in some employers to actually recruit from those particular groups.
Thanks, Viren. So we need to help employers to move from the sentiment, kind of wanting to do this, to actually kind of how can they do this? So Isa, how can apprenticeships be used to diversify the workforce to better reflect the diversity of ethnic backgrounds across the UK?
Yeah, great question. I think, Viren and Karima touched a bit on it, but we already know the benefits of an apprenticeship program, and as an alternative to traditional career routes, it's then using apprenticeships as a vehicle for diversifying the workplace and to drive it as well. But we must also remember that apprenticeships are a driver for social mobility. So you may ask how? Well, what we talk about is the 5 pillars of social mobility, which are opportunity, progression, skills, job security, and the M word, which a lot of people don't talk about, which is money. This needs to really be linked to attraction and recruitment strategies for recruiting diverse talent, and for building the culture within the workplace that allows retention and progression in the workplace. More importantly, employers need to really have an understanding firstly of the areas they serve, and then the many socioeconomic challenges underrepresented talent face when finding work and when in work. So for example, and these are some random examples, for a young person it may be unable to express themselves on application forms about the talent they have, or in the workplace an employee not seeing enough role models in senior positions to aspire to.
So we talk a lot about diverse workforces, don't we? And, that's really useful advice, Isa, and kind of really interesting viewpoint. Karima, from your point of view at Thames Water, or perhaps other organisations you've worked in previously as well, what are the benefits of having a diverse workforce? What kind of problems might that solve for an employer?
So I think in terms of problems, I'd probably start by saying diversity is the solution to tackling some of the problems that may arise due to lack of diversity in the workplace. A diverse workforce, we know, improves, businesses' ability to be agile, to engage with, diverse client groups, to increase profits, engage with their colleagues, to increase productivity. And we know from lots of studies and evidence that a diverse workforce is critical for employers if they really want to attract, and retain that best talent. So I think where employers don't create diversity and inclusion, their employee base who don't feel that they fit in or have a place or a belonging, they are likely to leave. And that just risks employers losing talent. So So I think it's really important that employers create this diverse workforce, because what it does is allow them to access this wider talent pool. We know, you're asking what are the sort of solutions and what are the problems. I mean, I think also what we know with a diverse workforce, we get new ideas, we get fresh perspectives and a different way of thinking. And Viren referenced earlier, sort of bringing some young apprentices in with his existing colleagues and really giving that level of insight that's very different if we don't do this. So I think it allows businesses to create a good, solid brand, and a brand that we should probably boast about, to say we are a diverse employer. We welcome that, and we want to create an inclusive environment where people feel they can bring their whole selves to work. From a Thames Water perspective, we have a good, diverse workforce, but when you compare our workforce against the diversity of our communities we serve, there's still there's still a number of activities and work that we need to do. And we've got quite a multi-generational workforce, but a lower proportion of young people in our business. So with the strategic workforce planning that I referenced earlier, we did some additional research, and we the research was really interesting because it showed us that within London population, as an example, there's a higher proportion of those under 25 from an ethnic minority background. So knowing that we need to increase the number of young people, because the data tells us we don't have enough, knowing that we want to be more ethnically diverse, it just makes absolute sense that we aim to attract young people from these areas. So not only can we offer fantastic opportunities, we also know that it allows us to then bring more youth and more ethnic minorities into the business. So I think for employers, it's great to have diversity. It does bring those new ways of thinking and new ideas, and really creates an environment, I think, where all colleagues, existing and new, can really feel a sense of belonging.
Thank you, Karima. I think that really clearly sets out some of the benefits for employers, and really interesting that you've taken that approach of analysing the data and looking at your communities as well and bringing that into your strategy. Fantastic. So Issa, how does the BAME Apprenticeship Alliance support employers to diversify their apprenticeship programmes? What kind of work are you involved in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I mean, a common question we get from employers is, how do we diversify our apprenticeship programs, and how do we reach underrepresented communities? And the model we use to kind of build this ecosystem is with all employers, providers, FE colleges, etc., is the educate, engage and recruit model. So first we educate the employers on representation through resources and workshops, exploring the role of building a workplace that fosters, more importantly, a culture of diversity, equitable opportunities and inclusive growth in the workplace. And in the business environment, this is also about how apprenticeships can be used to create upward mobility for underrepresented talent along career paths to take opportunities with the right skill sets needed. We then engage with underrepresented communities to talk about apprenticeships, and in particular piloting our new boot camps to better prepare young people on apprenticeship applications to reduce that shocking application churn amongst BAME communities. And last but by no means least, we help employers promote the opportunities to recruit diverse talent.
Thanks, Issa. A whole range of ways that you work with employers there and can support both the employers but also the potential applicants coming through, the candidates as well. Viren, can I bring you in to talk about individuals with disabilities, declared disabilities? And do you think there's more that employers could be doing to also support that group of apprentices or potential apprentices?
I think there's always more that employers can do to support sort of people with disabilities. I think that the OU has long recognised that employees with disabilities need to have full access to apprenticeships, and we had a recent report in 2019 called Access to Apprenticeships that really what we wanted to kickstart that conversation between the UK government, training providers, employers and charities to actually what more can we do to support apprentices that have declared disabilities. But we've got a long way to go. Only 18% of those respondents had firm plans to recruit apprentices that had declared disabilities. And that's a real challenge here. And we know at the OU we're trying our best to help promote this cause. I think, in terms of, I suppose, the OU, we have over 36,000 students who have a declared disability. And if to put that into context, that's probably the size of a normal UK university as it stands on its own. So, my message to employers is really to encourage them to consider different types of flexible, delivery to address the needs of that sort of those individuals that have disabilities.
Thanks, Viren. And I think that access to apprenticeships report that you referenced, even though it was a couple of years ago, there were still so many messages that are relevant post-pandemic, post-Brexit, that I feel... I think with employers, some of the data that was coming through that report was around not knowing where to go for support and perhaps not feeling confident around schemes like access to work and other things. And that was with a particular focus around disabilities. But of course, in the report that we're discussing today, we've been looking at some of that wider diversity, picking up socioeconomic backgrounds, ethnicities, genders, those with care experience. You know, we've looked at a whole breadth of different groups and individuals. So we know that apprenticeships, when it all kind of lines up, can really work in supporting individuals from more disadvantaged backgrounds and low-income areas into kind of having a really successful career. There's loads and loads of data saying that when we get this right, the magic happens and it really works. But how can we encourage more employers to be taking action on this? How can we ensure that more employers are going to be having impact? Viren, would you like to take that one?
I think there's an education piece that, as Isa mentioned earlier on, it's about educating employers around, the benefits of having a diverse workforce from different types of community, and then and sharing the examples that Karima has had in previous work roles, but also at Thames Water. So I think it's important that we educate. I think it's about education, but also giving them the tools. Apprenticeships is a tool to aid this, but it's as the survey says, there's a lot of sentiment out there, but actually how do they make that happen in practice? Well, actually it's about creating role models, creating exemplar organisations. Maybe Thames Water is an exemplar for this, Karima, in terms of what the work you're doing, and be able to map out your I suppose your workforce journey and where they are in that diversity angle, and using data actually to drive some of the decision making, rather than having sort of generalist campaigns out there. So I think there's a couple of things around sort of, how to do it, how do they do it, using their data and using sort of case studies, exemplar organisations to drive and educate employers to do more in this space.
Thanks, Viren. And Karima, would you agree with that? So as an employer, is there more that you think employers could be doing to kind of motivate and inspire other employers?
Absolutely. I think there's an opportunity to share best practice. We should be connecting, we should be talking to each other. And lots of businesses will be on a different stage of their journey. Some starting out, some might have nailed it, or some will have lots of learning and experience of do differently. But I think it's really clear that there's a clear action plan to do. And I talk about intent, similar to what Viren said. So the intent might be there, but it's the how-to that normally becomes the challenge.
I completely agree, and I think even some of the biggest organisations with the biggest, boldest brands, and you'd think kind of you might assume that perhaps everything would be sorted, but of course this is never going to be job done, is it? Because the market keeps changing, the economy of young people that we're working with, the kind of products and routes in as well. So obviously over the past year, 18 months, we've seen all sorts of initiatives like Kickstart, but we've also seen the growth of traineeships, but apprenticeships have kind of remained as that constant. And Viren, we also see real cold spots around the country where we see absolute success, and then in other areas it just doesn't seem to quite connect. What are your thoughts about how we can tackle some of those cold spots?
I think some rural and remote areas are definitely HE and FE cold spots. I mean, it makes travelling is an issue for apprentices, who have busy lives. So and they may need to require a sort of a more flexible option. I think what we've done at the OU is to develop partnerships with organisations like the Isle of Wight NHS Trust to deliver sort of nursing apprenticeships, so they retain the talent on island rather than those learners travelling to Southampton. And similar principles with Cornwall Council in our social work sort of partnership with them. But it's about trying to keep that talent local and keep those skills local through a flexible delivery method. Because traditional education sometimes often means that learners move away from their area, move away from their local areas, and actually those skills are then lost to a local region and that community, which is a big loss, and therefore it effectively perpetuates that cold spot of HE and FE sort of education. So it's trying to change that ecosystem to keep individual learners local and to give that area the level of skills they need to develop their own economies, really.
Yeah, thank you. I think that idea of the location and relocation is really important, because we've spoken to lots of young people who perhaps have been able to relocate if their finances and situation have allowed it, or indeed if the employer has put some of that support in place. But we speak to many young people who wouldn't have that facility to be able to self-fund a relocation for an apprenticeship. So therefore they are desperate for local opportunities, and it's just trying to join it all up really, so that the learning can happen as well as the employment. Issa, can I bring you in? Because I know you've been doing a lot of work around inner city areas. So what's the BAME Apprenticeship Alliance seen when it comes to apprenticeship access uptake, particularly in some of those inner city areas you've been working in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, the employers' attitudes has changed, and more importantly, community attitudes have changed as well. More and more communities are now aware of apprenticeships. I mean, the average school we visit, about 60 to 80% of young people in a class of about 30 put their hands up and say they understand or know of an apprenticeship, and the fact that they can learn and earn on the job, which is quite remarkable compared to where we were a few years ago. However, the way the apprenticeship systems has been designed with the levy changes meant that the focus on 16 to 18 roles has reduced, and more companies are using levy to upskill existing employees. And there's a bit of data that had been released on this, that there's been a 36% decline in apprenticeship starts from underrepresented backgrounds compared with 23% for others. So we can see there's a bit of an impact there. But if we were to speak on the last 2 years and put it into context for this, the Sutton Trust did a report on this and said that nearly half of apprentices had been or were still furloughed in October 2020. And as of October 2020, it had been reported that 31% of had continued their apprenticeships without any disruption since the beginning of the pandemic. So, but I mean, data had been really released, which I've not got in front of me, but it said that the government initiatives since the beginning of 2021 with Kickstart, etc., has mitigated some of these challenges. So, of course, there's going to be lots of challenges ahead, and especially with education systems disrupted, and but also there's opportunities for as more and more companies invest in talent. As Viren said earlier, that there's going to be more and more companies investing in apprenticeships, and with access becoming much more wider due to the future of work and hybrid working models, there's a lot of opportunities to come from this.
Thanks, Issa. So many useful points in there, and I'm well aware of the data that you're referencing with the Sutton Trust and the Social Mobility Commission, and they've done a huge amount of trying to uncover the issues. And actually, we do find that learners from less advantaged backgrounds can be disadvantaged at every stage of the apprenticeship recruitment, the apprenticeship journey, right from kind of the language used, where adverts are placed, how some of that pre-apprenticeship engagement happens before they even get close to the interview and application process. Which brings me on to my next point, really, because we in this space, when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, there's often a really good debate around prior attainment and whether or not it matters to be able to get onto an apprenticeship. And Viren, I'd love to hear your thoughts from the Open University's perspective about prior attainment, and whether you feel that should be a kind of a benchmark that needs to be in place for a degree apprenticeship or not. And then I will also bring Karima and Issa in on that. So Viren, what are your thoughts around entry requirements?
I think I've mentioned it earlier that the OU has an open access policy, so we do not require any sort of prior educational attainment to join our sort of program. So that means that people from all backgrounds, all educational attainments can actually join our courses, acquire the skills, and actually get a qualification at the end of it. And that's really important. I think the survey said that actually 75% of those respondents said that apprenticeships are really important to help them hire people that don't have sort of educational qualifications. So I think we're engaging with that. We have that approach, which is open access. So I think it's important that apprenticeships are actually widely accessible to a wide range of people, not only from socioeconomic backgrounds, but actually ones that don't have any kind of educational background at all. And we take them on that journey. We take them from what I call from zero to hero, really, in that educational journey. And we do that through a number of, we have access courses, we have sort of functional skills that help them on that, but in a way that actually they feel supported. you know, we find that actually the way that we teach and the way we engage with the learners is, you know, some of them actually find that more attractive than the sort of traditional classroom teaching methods. They feel less apprehensive. They feel, you know, less confident when going into a sort of classroom scenario where actually coming to work with us. They feel a lot more supported, and they feel like they can engage a lot more. So I think it's really interesting from that perspective. You know, and just a stat to give you that, you know, 48% of our apprentices are from disadvantaged backgrounds. So, you know, we are saying what we do by having that open access policy. It's widening it out to everyone, and for the better, for social mobility purposes. It's amazing.
Definitely. Thank you, Viren. I think you paint a really good picture there. So if there are any kind of objectors out there, or people saying, but you couldn't possibly do a degree if you haven't got GCSE English, you would really struggle with the academic side of things. How would you know how to research things and reference things? What would you say to them, Viren?
I think, you know, it's about, I think for us, it's about taking it easy and slowly. So it'll take you longer for sure, but actually there are steps, there are organisations that can help you on that journey. So take you through the bits about, you know, reading and writing and being able to write in academic language. There are modules, there are courses that can take you through that process. It's being able to take that first step into it and go, actually, I can do this, and I have the support of an organisation, whether it's the OU or whether it's anybody else, that can help you on that journey. And I think that's the important piece. It's that individual taking that first step and not being frightened to go, actually, I can do this.
Fantastic, thank you, Viren. Karima, can I bring you in on this? So for the work that you're doing at Thames Water and the role that you're in, are you moving away? Have you ever had those kind of entry requirements, qualifications being the benchmark? And if so, are you moving away from that to any kind of different recruitment activities?
Yeah, it's really good timing. I remember last year when I recruited my apprenticeship and graduate manager, and he rang me up and he said, I've got a candidate I'd love to make an offer to, but I need you to approve it. And I said, great, why do I need to approve it? He said, well, this candidate hasn't got the A and the B that we need. And I said, who set out the candidate needs the A and B? He said, well, it's there, you know, it's there. Is it a policy? Is it writing? So I think historically, businesses probably, even when it comes to broader recruitment, ask for degrees, ask for XYZ experience, and we've got to start to remove that. So if I can just maybe give you an example of what we've been doing, we've got a broader skills strategy, and we've made a number of commitments. And again, going back to what Viren said, you know, this intent, so that the intent's there, but how do you do? So we signed up to a number of commitments. We said 5% of our workforce in earn and learn positions. We signed up to the 5% Club, and then we signed up to the Care Leaver Covenant, the Ban the Box, the Domestic Abuse Covenant, you know, Social Mobility Pledge, the list goes on. So the intent is there, but really it's around, well, what do you need to do differently to now attract, to make sure those people actually have access? And one massive part was about barriers. So we piloted a lot of this with our community-based recruitment, removing barriers. And we did a lot of work with our summer interns that we took in last summer. And 58% of our summer interns were care leavers. 67% were first generation going to university, and 50% were young people who were on free school meals when they're in secondary school. So a real different approach to how do we really go out there and tackle some of those challenges and remove the barriers. And we removed the barriers and we got these people through the door. So we go live with our apprenticeship recruitment campaign this year, shortly. And what we've done is said we've really got to take this active approach. So we've created diverse recruitment panels. We've removed barriers in application. We've made it easier. I think we had a very long-winded process to apply. We've removed exam grade criteria. So although we ask for it, it doesn't exclude anyone from applying. And we've used the Skills Builder framework as part of our recruitment and assessment stage. So really ensuring that we're looking at how we assess people on their ability to, not have they done. And then we've also created the Right Network. So to the points made earlier around organisations that are out there working with disadvantaged groups, we've really engaged with these organisations, lots of charity partners that we have who are helping educate us on how do we remove barriers. We had a group of young black men come in and apply for our roles, and they give us lots of feedback around all the things that have switched them on in that application process we can go and do differently. So for us, we're applying what I'm a lot of people say, and I'm calling positive action. And we want to ensure that people from a disadvantaged background are given equal opportunity to apply and access our roles. and that as employers we create not this intent translates into diverse recruitment panels, colleagues across the business that get it, that are bought into this, that while we might compromise on quality, we make the process easy and we ensure that people have the opportunity to access. And I think when we do get this right, and we've had success already, share those stories across the business. We're asking apprentices and grads to help us recruit for next year round. Why not bring that diversity to the forefront? So as you're attracting more people, they can see the workforce that you have, and hopefully a diverse workforce that they feel that they can really be included in and bring their whole self to work.
Some incredible examples there, Karima, and just brilliant initiatives that you've managed to bring together across your teams to be able to have huge impact. The data that you were quoting from last year's intake is phenomenal. So what's the ripple effect been for your colleagues across the business? Have you had reactions from them that this is kind of a really positive thing? How's it landed with your colleagues?
Yeah, and to be honest, we weren't sure how it would land. We thought there'll be people that might say this is great, but what about this group, or are we focusing on all groups? So, very early on last year, we went out to all teams and shared our skills strategy, and we took the approach about how do you support us to come on this journey, and we actually used Kickstart as our leverage to engage our colleagues on this. So if I just briefly explain our approach to Kickstart, so rather than saying Kickstart's here to support young people to gain experience, we said if you would like to host a Kickstarter, this is your opportunity to develop your leadership skills and your mentoring skills. So either you're not a leader in the business at the moment, and this is a great opportunity, or you are, but actually it will really give you a different lens. So that was kind of priority one of why we're doing a Kickstart. The second driver for Kickstart was this will also help you build a pipeline into your business. And thirdly, this young person will develop skills. And by taking this approach, we have over 100 ambassadors across the business from our Kickstart programme that are living and breathing this. And those ambassadors have been involved in the traineeship that we ran last year, have put their name forward to support on the diverse recruitment panels. So we've almost created this movement, if you like, if I can use that word, by engaging in colleagues to look at how these schemes can benefit them, but then they start to open their doors and their thought process to see how it really benefits wider groups as well.
Fantastic. So for any employers who are listening thinking, okay, we were one of those employers who said the intent is there, absolutely we want to do this, but we're not sure how. I think we've just heard a whole range of examples of different ways that not only you might be able to lead it, but you could bring your colleagues into some of that activity as well, to really for the benefit of the entire workforce. Okay, we've had a fantastic discussion today. I think we've covered a huge range of issues and challenges. I think the data has been fantastic, that this report has really shone a light on how we have huge intent from employers there, and we need to put those stepping stones in place to be able to move it forward and help those employers to take action, to be able to use apprenticeships to diversify their workforce. So I'm going to ask everyone for their final thoughts and reflections on today's session. So Viren, I'd like to start with you.
Okay. I think a key takeaway for me, Anna, is from the conversation we've had today is around sort of flexibility. I think my top tip for employers is to cater for different learning styles. We know that one size doesn't fit all, so actually having a range of options so that you can actually get benefit from this and your workforce benefits from it. So, some learners may prefer a traditional classroom-based learning, some may prefer a more flexible learning method to fit around their busy life. So actually having a blended approach to hopefully meet your workforce requirements, I think it would be really key, and I think actually will help grow and build business.
Thank you, Viren. And Issa, if I come to you?
Yeah, sure. I think in our perspective, it's all about data and accountability. Collecting workforce data that looks at ethnicity in every level of the organisation, so not just at the recruitment stage, but going up to senior leadership and even the board level, and the progression aspects of such employees, but also understanding the backgrounds to know where they started in their career. So, for example, looking at free school meals as a marker, or using their postcodes to link it to the multiple deprivation index. And then importantly, publish this data internally to every colleague within the organisation to be held accountable for any ambitious goals or change that you would like to see. Now, lastly, it's important that this is driven from leadership because you don't want to give this to somebody to say, okay, this is your job to look at it. It's got to be driven from leadership, because when leadership is on board, then every single person is on board for ambitious change and ambitious goals.
Thank you, Issa. And Karima, if I can come to you.
So I think, just leading on to Issa's point around leadership, I think leadership, and then creating those ambassadors that I mentioned earlier, creating this culture where we have colleagues and ambassadors that want to be on this journey with us and see the benefit of bringing youth into the business, or people from a socio-economic diverse background, ethnic minorities. So I think we have the intent, but we've got to make sure we build that momentum with culture, with buy-in, with ambassadors. I think we've got to look at our application process. We've got to remove barriers. Barriers will be there even if we don't think they are. So I would definitely encourage anyone to look at them and use organisations to help, as we've done in the past, to look at how we advertise and how you could remove barriers. I'm sure there's things in there that are switching people off. I think also ensure that when you are assessing people, you're assessing them on their ability to do. Quite often we have interview processes that really want to sort of experience what they have been through. This is about their end experience. This is not about what they can do now. It's about how we're going to invest in them to create that skill for the future. Partnerships are important. I referenced earlier, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the work that we do now if we weren't engaging with the right partners. You know, we've been able to bring care leavers in, ex-offenders into our business because we've created the right partnerships, and they've been really successful. And I think, just finally, you know, Anna, you said this is a great initiative, great project, absolutely. But the last few months I've been saying to the business, this isn't a project and this isn't an initiative. And while we use those words initially and it's the right thing to do, what I'm saying to them, we now need to embed this into business as usual. This is just the way we bring talent in. It's not a new initiative. It's not a nice to do. So we bring talent into our business because we do all these things that allow us to access this wider talent pool. So I think when there's an opportunity post launching new projects and new initiatives, really make sure they are built into BAU, so that they don't fall by the wayside and you revert back into the old BAU. This needs to be the new way of bringing talent into the business. So it's a sustainable way of bringing talent in.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Karima. And I think from my point of view, I'd like to just add that I think the collaboration is key. I think what we've heard today is that collaboration, whether it's between employers, between training providers and the employer, whether it's community outreach groups that you can collaborate with, whether it's collaborating with different teams and departments across your organisation and bringing your workforce in, that no one has there is no silver bullet to this. There isn't one answer. We all need to connect, collaborate, share experiences, understand what works. I love how openly Karima and Viren and Issa, you've shared all of your ideas and experiences with us today. And I think there's so much that the audience will be able to take away and hopefully take some action on. So thank you all to our panellists. Thank you for joining and for sharing. It's been a really wonderful session. Now, I need to tell you that you can download the full report and have access to all of that brilliant data and insight. You need to go to the resources tab, or you can visit the Open University's website. The link is appearing on your screen right now. So thank you to everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you have had a brilliant start to your National Apprenticeship Week, and that the rest of the week continues to be as successful too. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.